Now if you take a look at the repository that we have the method to add, find first or default, get all, remove and save changes. But we do not have the method to update. And I have intentionally not included that. The reason is when we are updating, not all model needs to be updated the same way. It can be different for each model. There are also many requirements which can be specific to certain models like application type or product. So for that, the best way to deal with this is our repositories should be wrapped in individual repositories for models. So if we go to Solution Explorer and if we go to Data Access, inside repository, let me add a new class file. And I will call this category repository. Let me copy this, go back inside the interface. We will add a new item. We'll add an interface here called as iCategory repository. Now this iCategory repository should implement from iRepository. And iRepository, if you remember, it expects a generic class. Since this is a category repository, the class or the model that will be dealing here will be the category model. Make sure you have the public keyword for the interface. In here, I want to add a new method that does not exist inside my iRepository, which is update. And when I want to update anything in this repository, I will be updating only the category. So we have a new method inside our iCategory repository. We have to add the category repository. We already added that class, which is category repository. Let me open that up. Make sure you do not forget the public keyword or it won't be accessible. Now this category repository should implement the repository class on generic class, which is category. So you see, when we are using the repository, we define what is the generic class that we have been using throughout our repository pattern. So that will dynamically pass a category object in our repository. Along with that, for category repository, it also needs to inherit from the iCategory repository. Then if you hover on the squiggly lines, we need to implement the interface for update method. In order to update anything, we need private read-only application db context, and we'll get that using dependency injection in our constructor. So we have application db context db, and then if you recall, we also need the db context in repository. So we'll pass that to all of the base here, which is the db. And we'll say underscore db is equal to db. Now when we want to update anything, we have multiple ways of updating. Let me do it the first way, which is obj from db is equal to underscore db dot category dot first dot default. You can see here we can do the traditional way that we were doing inside the category repository. The reason I'm doing this is we are inside the category repository. So we have first and default. We will find out the category object. So u goes to u.id is equal to category.id. Whoops, it will be obj.id. Once you retrieve that object, you can check here if obj from db does not equal to null. If this is not null, then we'll say obj from db.name is equal to obj.name, and we'll also update obj from db.displayOrder is equal to obj.displayOrder. Now here we won't be saving the changes, because we already have the save changes inside our generic repository. So do not use that here, and we'll see how we can use that when we actually consume our repository. Now you might be thinking that we already have first or default inside our repository. So why do we want to use underscore db here? If you want, all you can do is right here, you can say base dot, we have the first dot default in there. So with that, everything should work as expected. If you want, you can also remove the base, but I like to leave that since the names are the same. So with this, I can explicitly know that I'm using the base from repository. So with this, our category repository has been completed and we can modify our category controller. Let's do that in the next video.